fractions. Everybody hates fractions, okay? I don't know why, most students struggle with fractions, but let's review the fundamental topics, fundamental knowledge that you have to know about fractions. Well, let's see. I can say A over B. What is the term A? What do we call that? A is our numerator, and B is our denominator. And essentially, you have to know how to add fractions, subtract fractions, multiply and divide, okay? So let's go ahead and take a look at a few problems just to refresh your memory on how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide fractions. So if I'm adding a fraction, okay, and let's just say I have 2/3 plus 2 over 3, this problem is very simple. Why? Whenever you're adding fractions, the first thing you want to look at is the denominators, okay? This is the first thing you want to look at. You have to make sure that the denominators are the same. In this case, the denominators are both 3. Therefore, we're relaxed. We don't have to worry so much. And automatically, I know my denominator will be 3 for the answer, okay? Once again, if you're adding fractions, you always want to make sure if the denominators are the same numbers. If not, you'll have to manipulate this equation somehow. But in this case, it's very simple, and my phone is going off. We'll put it. My phone is going off.
Yeah. And now I'm back.
And now I'm back. Sorry. So, once again, if I'm adding fractions, I want to make sure my denominators are the same. In this case, my denominators are the same, and now I simply add the numerators. 2 plus 2, in this case, is 4, and I have 4 over 3. Wow, what a simple problem. Well, hold up. 4 over 3, I can go ahead and turn this into a mixed fraction. Why? This is actually an improper fraction. What is an improper fraction? Improper fraction is when your numerator is greater than your denominator. In this case, 4 is my numerator and 3 is my denominator, therefore it's an improper fraction. Maybe I have to make it into a mixed number because my answer choice will be as a mixed number. How do you go ahead and convert an improper fraction into a mixed fraction? Well, very simple. You take the numerator and you have to see how many times will it divide into 4. Well, I know 3 goes into 4 once, therefore my whole number is 1. And now I have to basically subtract what I'm left with. So I have 4, and then 4 minus 3 times 1 is 1 over 3. So if you're confused, this is what you do basically. All right, so first you want to see how many times does 3 go into 4. And I know it's 1, right, because 3 times 1 is equal to 3. If I can't do 3 times 2 because that's 6, and 6 is way greater than the numerator number 4, right? So the whole number is going to be 1, and then I simply have to take my numerator and subtract that from my denominator times the whole number. So 3 times 1 is 3, 4 minus 3 is 1, so I'm left with 1 1/3, and this is my mixed fraction over here. So, what happens when my denominators are not the same in fractions? Well, let's go ahead and take a look at over here on this board over here. Let's say it is 2 over 4 plus 3 over 8. Immediately, what do you want to do? Same exact thing. You want to look at your denominator. I have a 4 here, I have an 8 here. Automatically, right off the bat, I know that I have to play around with these numbers because they are not the same numbers. But once again, this question is not too tricky because I already know I can somehow manipulate this side of the equation, this side of the fraction over here to make this into an 8. How can I make this denominator into an 8? I can multiply by 2. 4 times 2 is 8. That would solve all my problems, right? Well, if I multiply this by 2, 4 times 2, I must also multiply this by 2 because whatever I do to the denominator, I must do to the numerator as well. So I don't change the fraction basically of its actual value. So I will multiply this 2 times 2 and 2 times 2. What do I get? Well, 2 times 2 is 4 over 2 times 4 is 8 plus 3 over 8, right? Just from here. And okay, wow, this once again becomes a problem just like we saw over here. I have the common denominator. 4 plus 3 is 7. 7 over 8. And that is your question. That is your answer. Let's take a look at one more problem. let's say 1/2 plus 2/3, right? Now, over here, I only had to manipulate one side of the fraction to basically get my answer. Over here, it turns out that I'll have to actually manipulate both of the fractions because 2 and 3, right? What is the least common multiple between 2 and 3? Right? That's what you have to think about, right? What number can what number can my denominator be? It turns out that 6 can be a nice number for a denominator for each of these fractions. So I know that 2 goes into 6 3 times, so I'm going to multiply this by 3. So 3 times 1 and 3 times 2. And I know that, once again, 3 times 2 is 6, so I want to get this to 6 as well. How do I get this to 6? Well, I multiplied 3 times 2, which is 6. So over here, I'm multiplying by 2 instead of 3. So 2 times 2, 3 times 2, right? So once again, the most important thing over here is you make sure your denominators are equal. 3 times 2 is 6, 3 times 2 is 6. We're very happy. So this will work, okay? So 3 times 1 is 3, plus 2 times 2 is 4 over 6. Okay, fantastic. We can now just go ahead and add the numerator straight across. 4 plus 3 is 7. 7 over 6. Well, 7 over 6 is actually improper fraction. Maybe you could leave it like that. Maybe you want it into a mixed fraction. How do you do that? Well, I know 6 goes into 7 one time, right? So my whole number is 1. And I know that, so 6 times 1 is equal to 6. And I know I have to subtract my numerator by this number over here, which is 1. And my denominator will always be this number over here, 6. So I'm left with 1 and 1/6. So this is a problem about addition. Same thing goes for subtraction. If you're subtracting, the same exact rules apply. Your denominators must be the same. If not, you manipulate them and then subtract the numerator to get your answer. Let's go ahead and take a look at some multiplication. How do you multiply fractions, right? So I like multiplication, multiplying fractions a little bit more because you don't really have to worry too much about the denominator, right? So if I have 2 over 8 times 1 over 4, you don't have to worry about anything. If you see if you have to multiply two fractions, just multiply straight away. You multiply the numerators. 2 times 1 is 2. 8 times 4 is 32. And that's all you have to do, basically, right? You don't have to change the denominators, okay? But what you do have to do is, if the question is asking you to reduce your fraction to the simplest terms, well, I can definitely simplify this further down. I have 2 as my numerator. I have 32 as my denominator. How do I go ahead and simplify or reduce the fractions? I can divide both sides by 2. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. 32 divided by 2 is 16. And that is in its simplest form. And the answer would be 1 over 16. Let's take a look at one more. Let's go ahead and do 7 over 9 times 2 over 2. Why not? 7, once again, straight across. Multiply. 7 times 2 is 14. 9 times 2 is 18. Okay? Now, you're going to want to try to simplify this, right? So, well, I know right off the back they're even integers, okay? So, if you want the easy way out, just go ahead and, if you know that they're even, just keep dividing by 2 if it makes your life easier, right? So, 14 divided by 2, 7. 18 divided by 2 is 9, and I know that there's no other way I can simplify this because 7 is actually a prime number. Therefore, I can't really reduce it unless if I'm dividing both terms by 7, and in this case I'm not, so the answer is 7 over 9. Let's go ahead and take a look at what happens when we divide fractions, okay? Let's take a look at the same exact problem, okay? So 2 over 8 divided by 1/4. Okay, now here you have a problem, okay? You have to follow these steps to make sure you get these questions correct if you're asking, if you have two fractions and you're being asked to divide them, okay? Immediately, what you want to do, okay, immediately you change this division sign into a multiplication sign, and you take the reciprocal of your second fraction. What is the reciprocal? You flip it, right? So your numerator becomes the denominator, your denominator becomes the numerator. So what are you left with? You're left with 2 over 8 times 4 over 1. Be very careful. Don't flip this fraction. Only flip this fraction. The reciprocal, you have to take the reciprocal of this fraction over here. And now, we're very happy because it's multiplication, so multiply straight across. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 1 is 8. 8 divided by 8, of course, is 1. So that is my answer. Let's take a look at one more division problem over here. Let's say I have, we can take a look at this one, actually. Actually, I'll use something else. Let's say I have 8 over 10 divided by, let's say, 1/3. Let's switch it up. Let's say 5/3. Why not? Let's make it in, this is an improper fraction. Who cares? It doesn't matter. What do? Well, same steps. Automatically, you change this. You want to take the reciprocal of this. Numerator becomes a denominator. Denominator becomes a numerator. So I'm left with 8 over 10 times 3 over 5. And I get 8 times 3, 24. And then 10 times 5 is 50. And this is my answer. However, don't forget, I can go ahead and reduce this fraction, right? So divide that by 2, I get 12 over 25, right? Divide by 2, divide by 2, and that gives me 12 over 25. Be sure to reduce the fractions in the simplest form. However, on the GRE exam, actually, if you're given some kind of problem like this, obviously this is a little bit too simple. Actually, you don't have to reduce it to the simplest form. You can enter into the computer 24 or 50. There you go. You have the right answer. Don't worry about simplifying it, unless, of course, the question actually says give the answer in the simplest terms, but they don't actually do that. So both these answers are valid. Okay?